Welcome, curious wanderers, to another night in the star-laden storyscape of cosmic cauldrons. Tonight, we drift through tales of spectral beauty and cosmic oddities, for this is the season when the veil between worlds wears thin. Tonight, we follow Astral Weaver, the young witch in a boundless sky, and her loyal Stardust, to a place where reality and dreams lose their meaning. The story begins, as so many do, aboard the Nebula Nomad. She is a ship of quiet hums, gentle lights, and ageless metal, carrying Astral and Stardust through the star-strewn void. But what they did not know was that their journey tonight would lead them into the dreamlike lands of a world known only as Whimsyre. Whimsyre, what a name, and how perfectly it fit this place. For here, trees sprout upwards only to float, untethered, on gentle drafts of impossibly cool wind. Grass blooms in radiant colors, flowing like water across strange lands where the air itself seems to murmur secrets. There is something else here, something Astral felt as she looked out across the strange terrain. It is a place of things that almost seem remembered, a world echoing the half-formed dreams that linger just on the edge of waking. And like all dreams, Whimsyre calls with a voice both alluring and strange. Yet, as you might suspect, things on Whimsyre are not always what they seem. In this strange land, our hero Astral disembarked from her ship, her feet pressing onto ground that felt soft but uncertain, as if she might float away at any moment. The quiet tension is broken as Stardust, ever the little trickster, bounces down a glimmering path, flashing Astral a mischievous look before scampering off into the soft mists. And with that, Stardust was off. No glance over his shoulder, no pause, just a happy little bound away from Astral, and off into the landscape of rainbow grasses and drifting flowers. This wasn't unusual. Stardust often roamed freely, exploring with a curiosity that might lead one to think he didn't recognize danger, or didn't care about it. Yet, something in Astral's heart pulled her after him. Perhaps she felt that Stardust had been leading her to something, as he so often did. Perhaps she wondered if this strange world held more secrets than it seemed. Whatever the reason, Astral followed him, her eyes wide with wonder and her heart thrumming with the thrill of the unknown. Deeper into the mist-draped land she went, each step heavy with that thrilling, almost unnerving sense that the world around her was watching, listening, like a dream that held its breath in eager anticipation. As Astral travels through the dreamlike landscape, she begins to notice curious figures slipping in and out of sight, barely more than shadows with flickers of personality. Now, Whimsyre was far from empty. Astral saw forms moving through the mist, strange beings who, with each step, seemed to morph from shadows into shapes she almost recognized. One particular figure caught her attention, sitting beneath a floating tree, pouring a cold vapor from a kettle as if serving an invisible guest. There was something peculiar, something familiar about this figure, wasn't there? Yes, something about the slant of his grin, the tilt of his hat, the icy mist that hung around him like a warning. Astral approached him, and for a moment, they simply looked at each other. Though he never introduced himself, Astral knew, as she sometimes did, that this was a creature who took delight in games. But before Astral could say a word, he vanished, leaving her with a chill and a question, one that lingered in the back of her mind as she continued her journey. Remember what you did? Astral felt like she was being toyed with. If this was a game, Astral wondered, then what was the prize? And who, exactly, was playing it with her? Further along, Astral's path is interrupted by another entity, a pair of glimmering green eyes and a grin floating in the air like a specter. In the shifting mists, another creature appeared, slinking from shadow to shadow with a grin that gleamed like emerald stars. Astral couldn't quite say why, but there was something about those eyes, something that reminded her of the alien Demon King, a creature she had faced, yet who seemed to elude all easy answers. This creature spoke only once, its voice almost a whisper, though it was clear, resounding as though it had come from her own thoughts. "Beware the Wabberwonky," it said, with a grin that seemed to stretch far past any ordinary mouth. And then it was gone, dissolving into the mist as though it had never been there. The creature's warning drifted through Astral's mind as she continued on her way, a lingering riddle with no answer. She could only press on, guided by the elusive, happy laughter of Stardust, who seemed utterly unbothered by the strangeness around him. After what seemed like hours, Astral found herself face to face with a figure of supreme authority, a woman draped in red, her staff a carved black rod topped with the shape of a cat that almost seemed to purr with life. And then there she was, the Red Queen, standing atop a hill that overlooked the dreamscape, her robes trailing like streams of blood against the pale mist. The Red Queen said nothing aloud, yet Astral could feel her words as if they were carved into her mind, a voice that resonated with ancient authority and unspoken power. This figure seemed to know her, though Astral had never met her. The Queen's eyes bore into Astral's, filled with a familiar blend of defiance, care, and warning. There was something almost maternal in her gaze, though it was a kind of motherly that looked upon the world with a watchful and unyielding judgment. For reasons she couldn't place, Astral felt herself drawn back to the memories of her mother's, figures distant yet influential, shadows in her life she rarely allowed herself to revisit. And yet, standing before the Red Queen, she could not help but think of them. Astral could not resist asking herself, if this woman before her was a reflection of herself, a darkened mirror held up by fate, then where might her own path lead? But the Red Queen was no simple reflection. She was a reminder, a warning, a presence whose existence lingered even after she turned and vanished into the mist, leaving only her echoing gaze behind. Her warning clear, the Red Queen was gone, leaving Astral with only Stardust's faint voice, calling her onward. At last, Astral found Stardust in a quiet glade at the heart of Whimsyre. But she wasn't alone. There, at the heart of this impossible world, Astral found the creature that had haunted her path all night, the Wabberwonky. Its face was twisted, but it bore the unmistakable features of her companion, Stardust, as though this creature had been born from the same cosmic mystery. A corrupted shadow, a dark echo, it leapt forward, claws outstretched. Astral threw up her hands, summoning her magic to push it back. The Wabberwonky snarled, each strike sending chills down her spine as it pressed her back, testing the limits of her power. It was a terrible, twisted thing, yet Astral felt that its existence was tied somehow to Whimsyre itself, as though it had been born from the darkness of this world, a creature twisted from what could have been and what might yet be. And so, in a surge of strength, Astral sent her magic forward, driving it back with one final blast of light. With a strangled cry, the Wabberwonky dissolved into the mists, leaving Stardust safe and sound, his innocent eyes gleaming with quiet joy as if nothing had happened. As they ascended into the nebula nomad once more, Whimsyre faded behind them, but the memories of its strange, shadowy beauty lingered. And so they departed, but Whimsyre did not leave them untouched. Astral was left wondering so many things. Why did the planet react to her as it did? If everyone she met resembled people she knows, then why did the Queen look so much like her? And how is the Wabberwonky tied to the life of the planet? The strange land, with its shifting rules and lingering mysteries, had settled like space dust in Astral's mind, there to stay until the day she might need its lesson most. A reminder that even in the infinite vastness of space, the deepest mysteries are those found within our own selves. So Space Sorcerers, stay tuned for the next chapter of Cosmic Cauldrons. Please like and subscribe.